others. We are celebrating Srila Prabhupada's Vyasa Puja on the 20th of August. So please remember to send in your Vyasa Puja offerings by the 5th of June. So today's program will go as follows. We'll have a spiritual discussion by His Holiness Bhakti Caitanya Swami Maharaj ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, followed by Kirtan and Prasadam, or the Sunday Love Feast, which will happen in the Marquee. We'd also like to thank those devotees who have prepared today's meals. So today's topic is called Finding Freedom, Tools to a Light Heart. So this is where His Holiness Bhakti Caitanya Swami will explore the shackles that keep us in a negative state of consciousness and averse to spiritual growth. Is freedom found in letting go? How does a path of bhakti free us? So I'd now like to hand over to His Holiness Bhakti Caitanya Swami Maharaj, which we are so grateful to have his association for over the last 3 years. Maharaj has been based here in Durban. And so just a little background on Maharaj. He is the GBC, or the global, the GBC chairperson for the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. He is also a direct disciple of Srila Prabhupada and is a guru in the line that leads up to Krishna. So we are very fortunate to hear from Maharaj today, and I'd like to hand over to him. Hare Krishna.
Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Yashodadandana Jaya Brajajararanjana Jaya Yamuna Tiravarashani Jaya Kunja Vihari Jaya Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari Jaya Gomi Jana Pallava Jaya Girivada Dari Jaya Girivada Dari Jaya Gomi Jana Pallava Jaya Girivada Yashoda da 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 Braja Jada Jada Yashoda da 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 Braja Jada Jada Yamuda Tira Vadachari Yamuna Tira Vadachari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe Jaya Radha 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 Radhe Jaya Giri Govardha Giri Govardha Giri Govardha Jaya Giri Govardha Jaya Nitai Gora Hari Nitai Gora Hari Gora Hari Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jai Prabhupada 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 Jaya Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajacharya Tadas Shishamad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki ISKCON's founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Shishi Radha Radhanath Ki Shri Giri Govardhan Ki Shri Caitanya Mahaprabhu Ki Sankirtan Yagya Ki Gaur Premanande. All glories to their simul devotees. All glories to their simul devotees. All glories to their simul devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Oops. So, devotees and friends. First thing, if you don't mind, could someone who knows how to operate the sound system turn the volume up a bit, please? If you don't mind, if you're able, because otherwise you may not hear me properly or sufficiently. How are we doing? It's a bit louder now? Is it loud enough? Can you hear me? Put your hand up if you can't hear me. Anyway, that's a joke. Don't worry too much. All right. please repeat after me. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, devotees and friends, today, as was announced to you, we are going to discuss, you could say, some of the obstacles, some of the main obstacles or challenges which face a person who wants to develop their spiritual life. Yes, to understand the obstacles and, of course, how to deal with them. This material world is a difficult place. Surely we're all aware of that now. You know, life was going on and there were many challenges. And then what happened? COVID came. Talk about unexpected. And that just multiplied the problems, you could say. And, then other things are happening. So many other things. It's really difficult. It's very difficult. And then you die. How's that? Yeah. That's not just a challenge either. That's it. Other things you may sidestep them or dodge them or somehow sort things out. But when the time of death comes, there's not a lot you can do about it. And seeing we're talking about, there are different levels, different types of problems, of course, but there are also, you could say, different levels of problems, different degrees. Yeah. But birth, death, old age, and disease, they are the classic problems and just the biggest of all the problems, really. There's a famous story. It's so famous, it's quite possible none of you have heard of it before. That's another little joke, by the way. There was a wealthy man living in Chatsworth, somewhere, maybe Unit 6, just up the road, across the road from Mr. Raj Bansi's house. And so there was a wealthy person living up there, and he had an assistant, what we sometimes call a gopher. You know, there's an animal in America, they call it a gopher, digs holes and whatever. But a gopher person goes for different things. So he's called a gopher. Yeah, a gopher. So this wealthy person from Unit 6 had a gopher. And one day he told the gopher, go down to the the shopping center down the road and get me something, whatever it might have been. So the gopher went down and he was in the ShopRite looking for the thing. And suddenly the gopher bumped into someone just in the aisle there. And it was a bit of a shock. And they turned around, they looked at each other. And the gopher saw it was death. Devotees and friends. The personality of death. And now they're just looking at each other. And the gopher, death is pretty shocking looking. So the gopher was really taken aback. And death was just looking at him in a very focused and concentrated way. And the gopher's sort of transfixed, kind of stunned, not moving. Suddenly death made a strange expression, like a mean expression. And that was too much for the gopher. So the gopher ran back up to Unit 6 and told the wealthy person that, you know what? I was down there in the Checkers Center. Those of us who've been around Chatsworth long enough, we still call it the Checkers Center. Anyway, I was down there in the ShopRite, and you won't believe it, I met death. And wow, it was devastating. And we were just staring at each other, and suddenly death, who's just looking at me, he made this strange expression. And it was too much, and so I just ran. And what I'm going to do, I am going to run up to Unit 11 to my brother's house and hide under the bed in the spare room on the second floor. Shishi Radha Radhanath Shri Giri Govardhan Shri Caitanya Mahaprabhu Ki Jai. Yeah, I'm going to go up there, 1101, and hide, go upstairs and hide under the bed, and that's what I'm going to do, because death looked like he was after me. So off he went to Unit 11. And the wealthy man, as we say here in chats, the Lani, the big Lani, he was upset that my gopher, I've lost my gopher. What am I going to do? So he decided to go down to the ShopRite in the Checkers Center and find death and tell death what he thinks. How dare you do this? So he came down, and sure enough, in the ShopRite, he found death. Death was still there. Would you believe, in the butchery department? Death was there. So our rich man, he just walked up to death and said, "Hey, you, what do you think you're doing? You frightened my gopher." And death said, "Well, I'm sorry. I just tend to frighten people. What can I do?" And the rich man said, "Well, you frightened my gopher, and now he's run away." And he told me that what really shocked him was that you made some strange expression. And that was too much. And he ran. So Death said, yeah, you know why I made that strange or unusual expression? You know why? Because I was so surprised to see him here in the ShopRite. I was really surprised because I have an appointment with him tomorrow in Unit 11 under the bed in the spare room on the second floor of his brother's house. So I was really surprised. Did you get that? Or was it too technical? So anyway, well, the moral or a moral of the story is you can't escape death. Yeah, so anyway, we're going to look at, consider some of the challenges which face us. We mentioned birth, death, old age, and disease. They are, you could say, the most foundational or fundamental problems, challenges that people face. And we'll also mention how you can deal with them. They can be dealt with, actually. But we'll also, let's just for a little while initially talk about some of the more, I don't know, would you say simple problems? Yeah. And in order to do this, I'm going to read a few verses. I'm going to read maybe 4 or 5 verses from Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And I'll read from chapter 16, which is titled The Divine and Demoniac Natures. And I'll start reading from verse 18. So yeah, the title is The Divine and Demoniac Natures, and it does, Lord Krishna does look at both of them in this chapter, but if you're familiar with Bhagavad Gita, you'd know that mainly he focuses on the demoniac nature. Yeah. So we'll read a few verses about the demoniac nature, or you could say people who have demoniac type natures. So here we go, verse 18 to start off with from chapter 16. Ahankaram balam darpam kamam krodham chasam shrita mam atma paradehe shu pradvishanto byasuyaka. Translation: bewildered by false ego, strength, pride, lust, and anger, the demons become envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is situated in their own bodies and in the bodies of others, and they blaspheme against the real religion. So that's just a little introduction. Like I said, we'll read some more verses. But the idea here, just one interesting point. Srila Prabhupada, our founder, spiritual master, he adopted the use of the term demon for the type of person mentioned here. Bewildered by false ego, bewildered by their own power, bewildered by pride, bewildered by lust, bewildered by anger, and some other things. The Sanskrit term the Sanskrit term which he translated into demon, the Sanskrit term is asura. Asura. Asura means ungodly, basically. Sura means a godly person, and asura means an ungodly person. Yeah, so Prabhupada adopted the use of this term demon. You know, if we hear this term demon, sometimes we may get a different sort of picture may appear in our minds, like, I don't know, someone with horns, with a trident, or I don't know, but, you know, someone really kind of ghastly looking, like a really hellish looking person. Yeah. But actually, the use of the term here is, I mean, in general, in our tradition, the term demon is someone, you could say, someone who's just extremely materialistic, and in their materialisticness, if there is such a word, they're just obsessed, they're driven by these types of personal characteristics. Lust, anger, greed, pride, envy, these types of personal characteristics. Okay, let's read on a couple more verses, few more verses. This is now verse 19. Tanaham dushata kruran samsareshu naradamam shipam yajasram ashubhan asurish eva yonishu. Asura. The term is used here in the last line. Asurish veva yonishu. Translation: those who are envious and mischievous, who are the lowest among men, I perpetually cast into the ocean of material existence, into various demoniac species of life. So, an interesting point there is that Krishna says, I perpetually cast them into various demoniac species. And the point there, of course, is, or first point, is that we're all eternal persons. These bodies are just temporary vehicles. We're like the drivers. If we take these bodies to be vehicles, or like vehicles, we are like the drivers. But we are eternal. Obviously, the body is temporary. But we are not temporary as conscious living beings. Yeah, we are eternal persons. And being eternal persons, therefore the possibility is there, or it happens, as Krishna says here. We go from one body to another, to another, to another, like that. And Krishna says, perpetually. It can just go on and on, perpetually, indefinitely. There's not necessarily a limit to how many bodies, how many lifetimes a person can have. Yeah, so, okay. Verse 20. Asurim yonim apana mudha janmani janmani mama prapyaiva kontaya tato yant yadamam gatim, attaining repeated birth amongst the species of demoniac life, O son of Kunti. Such persons can never approach me. Gradually, they sink down to the most abominable type of existence. Trividam narakasyedam dwaram nashanam atmana kama krodas tata lobhas tasmad etat trayam tyajet. There are 3 gates leading to this hell: lust, anger, and greed. Every sane man should give these up, for they lead to the degradation of the soul. So that's the bad news. That's extremely bad news, actually. It's, if you're not careful, if you get into the wrong company and develop the wrong habits and so on, attitudes, things can go from bad to worse. And that can be just the beginning. So it's interesting, though. Well, let me, just to sort of perk things up a little, let me read the next verse. It's verse, 22. Etair vimukta konteya tamo dwarais trabia nara acharat yatmana shreyas tato yati param gatim. The man who has escaped these 3 gates of hell, O son of Kunti, performs acts conducive to self-realization and thus gradually attains the supreme destination. So in the verse, so anyway, that's encouraging. That's encouraging. It is possible to do something about it and become corrected and actually achieve something very wonderful and glorious. But here, particularly in the previous verse, Krishna talked about the 3 main gates to degradation: lust, anger, and greed. And then there's pride, there's envy, there's arrogance, there's different types of negative personal qualities, and they have serious effects. If one falls under their influence, they can have extremely serious effects. In the 2nd chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna talks about a sequence in regard to lust. Lust, which, generally is taken to particularly be in a sexual type of sense, but it can be applied towards any sort of materially desirable type of thing. Lust for money, lust for power, like this. These are also part of lust. But in the 2nd chapter, in verse 62, Lord Krishna talks a little bit about lust. Very pointedly, the evolution, you could say, of lust, how it develops. Jayato vishayan pumsa sangasteshu pajayate sangat sanjayate kama kamat krodo bijayate. While contemplating the objects of the senses, a person develops attachment for them. And from such attachment, lust develops. And from lust, anger arises. That's a very interesting type of little overview of the development of lust, of material desire to get materially enjoyable things and just get them and just really get into them. The way Krishna puts it here, it begins with contemplation, just looking around here and there and, different places. And then you see, oh, that looks interesting. Whatever it is, some material thing. Oh, that looks interesting. And then you start to contemplate. Looks interesting in this way and that way. And a little bit of analysis, something like that. And, well, I could use that. I could enjoy that. So, while contemplating the objects of the senses, Krishna says, a person develops attachment for them. Attachment in this context basically means, I want it. I want it. And then from that attachment, lust develops. In this sort of context, lust developing basically indicates that the person wanting it, the person gets it, and then gets into whatever it is, enjoying it. If it's a member of the opposite sex, or money, or a new fancy car, or something, the person really enjoys, tries to enjoy whatever that sense object is. And then what is the result of that? What is the result when you actually engage yourself with the enjoyable object? What is the result? Tell me, go on. Happiness, right? No. Oh, really? Satisfaction. Satisfaction? Yeah? Not sure. Satisfaction. He thinks, yeah, satisfaction. But Krishna says, from lust, from actually getting into trying to enjoy whatever it is, Krishna says anger arises. It's interesting. Most people don't mind too much because most people are like you. I mean, not really. It's okay. I'm just joking. I know you're a sincere soul. But generally, the people in general, that's how they think. That we get whatever it is and we get into it, and then happiness comes. Satisfaction, yes, great. But Krishna says anger arises. And when I was young once, but it was really a long time ago. And when I was young, I was living in New Zealand, and I went to a concert, I think January or thereabouts, 1965. And would you believe, devotees and friends, fasten your seatbelts. I went to a concert of the Rolling Stones. And no kidding, at that time, right at that time, top of the hit parade was one of their songs. And what was it? You've never heard of the Rolling Stones, right? That's good. I can't get no satisfaction. I think they had read Bhagavad Gita. Well, I think they didn't read it, but so they're acknowledging Krishna's point that from lust, satisfaction does not come, but rather frustration, anger, these types of feelings. In other words, the fundamental process of material life, the most fundamental process, which is to get enjoyable things and enjoy them. Devotees and friends, sorry to say it, it doesn't work. And if you don't believe me, ask Mick Jagger. Yeah, because I believe they're still singing the same song, whatever, 50 or 60 years later or something. Yeah, and they still haven't got satisfaction. Actually, one of our devotees, about a year or maybe a couple of years ago, actually, I think just before COVID, happened to bump into Mick Jagger, who's the singer of the Rolling Stones, and asked him, "Have you got satisfaction yet?" Seriously. And Mick Jagger didn't say yes or no. He just laughed and walked away, which basically means no. So that's a problem in this world for so many people. They're trying to do this and do that and get satisfaction, but they're not really getting it. And rather, there's this tendency to become a bit frustrated because we're eternal spirit souls and we need spiritual things, just like fish need watery things. They need facilities for life in water and not life on land. So we are spiritual, we need spiritual things and not material things, because then it won't really work. It's like if you try to mix oil and water, I don't know if you ever tried to do that, they just separate from each other, because they just have different constituencies. And you can't, I mean, maybe you can shake them up and they seem to mix, but then pretty soon they'll separate from each other. So this is how it works. That because we're spiritual, when we try to enjoy things which are material, even though we have the idea in our minds that this is what we should do, but it doesn't really work. I mean, at best, it doesn't work well. If it worked well, then people like Donald Trump would be very happy. I don't think he's very happy at all. He still thinks he won the election, right? Anyway, let's not go down that path, but it's like that. And well, lust, anger, and greed, that's what Krishna mentioned in those verses we were reading from the 16th chapter. Lust, anger, greed, and we mentioned pride, envy, arrogance. But what to do about lust? What to do about it so that it doesn't just dominate you and cause a lot of disturbance to you? What to do about it? Well, just in very simple terms, particularly in terms of the attraction between male and female. In Krishna consciousness, the idea is not necessarily that you just deny yourself. I will not get into this idea of having anything to do with the opposite sex. I'll just live celibate. I mean, it's possible to do that actually, but not that everyone, that's the only thing you can do. But in Krishna consciousness, we have Krishna conscious marriage, where people actually take responsibility for each other and try to work together as a team for cultivation of God consciousness, Krishna consciousness. And it, of course, like anything, you got to be careful, you got to try and really do it right. Otherwise, you can just mess yourself up in another way. But if you do it right, then you can basically control lust and not become overwhelmed with it. And in regards to other things like lust for money, power, getting a new Lani motor car, big Mercedes Benz, the black one with the black windows, that sort of thing. Prabhupada advocated simple living and high thinking, not extravagant, or say high living and simple thinking. Simple living and high thinking in God consciousness. And then pride. Pride, of course, is an interesting one. Pride, we all know pride means that we think we are pretty qualified. We're pretty cool people, and we're better. Pride sort of necessarily includes that we think we're better than others. And I just had a little, I actually just gave another lecture just before I came up here to some devotees in a place called Reunion. It's actually part of France. And I told them a little story from Srila Prabhupada, how one devotee was meeting with Prabhupada and complaining about another devotee, that he's like this and he's like that and he's too much and I can't deal with him and I don't want to and I won't work with him. And Prabhupada said, well, he's a devotee, so try and tolerate him and work together. But then the devotee said, but he's like this and that, and he's too much, and I can't work with him. And Srila Prabhupada gave a very astute answer. Listen to this, see if you get this. Prabhupada said, well, he's a devotee, so try to work with him. Try to tolerate him as I tolerate you. So don't worry, no matter how cool you think you are, there's at least one person, if not many, in this world who when they see you, they think, oh no, it's him again, or her again. Don't worry. Yeah. So, in other words, we don't really have so much to be proud of. Intelligence, wealth, capabilities, and so on. You know, in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam is the story of the Rasa dance, Lord Krishna dancing with the gopis. And it's a long story, but at one point in the story, Krishna just leaves the gopis. It's like they just turned around and he's practically vanished. He just wasn't there. And they were really upset. But the thing was that he did that because they had, as they're dancing with him, they had started thinking that, yes, you know, Krishna, he's special, he's really special, but I've got him. Like, I've got control of him. And, you know, Krishna, he's God. You can't really just control him. But some people, anyway, they were feeling like that yeah, we got Krishna. He's under our control. So Krishna, to teach them a lesson, he disappeared to show them that literally you have not got me under your control. So, like I said, it's a long story, but in the course of explaining it, Srila Prabhupada makes the point that the gopis, in a certain sense, and that's an important point to note, but in a certain sense, they became proud. And Prabhupada explains there, a very interesting point, that Krishna, with his devotees, those who are trying to serve him and not just enjoy independently and just deny his existence or something like that, but people who are trying to serve him, devotees. When it comes with devotees, Krishna can tolerate so many faults and mistakes and things like that. Krishna's very tolerant, just like you could say like a parent. Parents are very tolerant with their children. The child makes a noise, but the parent, it's not a big issue usually for the parent because of the affection. So Krishna can tolerate many shortcomings on the part of his devotee who is trying to approach him. But, Srila Prabhupada makes the point, Krishna cannot tolerate pride. He doesn't tolerate pride in his devotees. Because pride, at least in relation to Krishna, means we're placing ourselves perhaps higher than Krishna. Anyway, Krishna can't tolerate pride. And Krishna actually in Caitanya Charitamrita says that if my devotee becomes proud, then I change my attitude towards him. And I deal with him or her, don't worry. It applies to the ladies too. So I deal with him in such a way that he voluntarily gives up that pride. Yeah. In other words, Krishna gives you what they call tough love, some tough mercy. It's mercy in that he's trying to help you to become better so you become happier. But because you've got yourself mixed up and you're kind of attached to being in the mixed up condition, you need a bit of pressure to get out of it. And that's what they call tough love. or tough mercy. You got to hang in there. Yeah. So yes, pride. So what to do about pride? I don't know if any of you have ever had an attack of pride or experienced a little pride. Anyone? Have you? He has. If you haven't, talk to Prabhu here. He can talk to you about a few of these things. Sorry. Just a joke. Yeah. So, yeah, what to do about it? It's important. You should do something about it. Because what have we got to be proud of? Not a lot. You know, Prabhupada, I mean, I hope you can digest this, but, oops, okay. Well, there's a lot more to be said on this subject, but let me just for the time being conclude here, in a minute, and then we'll have kirtan. So just bear with me for a minute or two. Yes, okay, so Srila Prabhupada arrived one time in Chicago, where we have, quite a substantial temple and things going on. So he arrived, and the devotees did something, a bit extraordinary. In order to receive him as nicely as they could, you know what they did? They rented a Rolls Royce. I'm sure many of us sitting here have never sat in a Rolls Royce, but they picked Prabhupada up in a Rolls Royce at the airport and took him to the temple. And there was a reporter. I think her name was Sandy Nelson. Anyway, there was a lady reporter there at the airport, and she saw this, and she came back to the temple and interviewed Prabhupada, and she said that, I thought you were spiritual. Well, what are you doing in a Rolls Royce? That's like a contradiction. It's not good. And Prabhupada, this is really quite something. Prabhupada said, you're right. It's really not good. I am a representative of God, which was definitely true. I'm a representative of God and should be treated like that. So to be picked up in some tinny Rolls Royce made of aluminium, they should have picked me up in a solid gold vehicle. He's just sort of playing with her. Yeah, Prabhupada was very good at answering questions, aggressive questions. He could sort of set the person back quickly. Yeah. So what have we got to be proud of? Even if you have a Rolls Royce. Do you have a Rolls Royce? You don't. Why not? What you got? You got something, right? Do you have a Toyota? A VW? VW. Okay. Well, VW, they also own Porsche, don't they? So, you could say you've got a relative of a Porsche. It sounds better. Anyway, sorry. Don't worry about it too much. So we don't have a lot to be proud of, really, now that the rand is 15 to the dollar. Even if you got 1,000,000 rands, it's like you only got $60,000. It's not a big deal. Okay, so these are some points. So don't be proud, be humble. We should try and be humble, because Krishna is a big man and we're very little people, and we need some mercy, and Krishna doesn't appreciate it if we become proud. Therefore Lord Caitanya said, Trinadapi Sunichena Tarorapi Sahishnina Manina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari. One should chant the holy names in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, you can chant the holy names of the Lord constantly. And the fact is that only in that state of mind is it possible to chant the holy names of the Lord constantly. Otherwise, if you're in a proud state of mind, of sometimes proud, your chanting will be interrupted. You won't be able to chant constantly. So these are some thoughts. Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So I guess we have Kirtan now, right?
Hare Krishna.
Oops, sorry.
So sorry, Maharaj. So we'd like to sincerely thank Maharaj with a round of applause for this wonderful class.
Oh. I paid her 10 rands to do that.
Does anyone have any questions before we go to Kirtan? Maharaj is not going to be in Durban for too long, so if you have a burning question, please feel free to ask. Okay, Smita Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much for the class. When you began the class, you spoke of the verse where Krishna says he perpetually casts the demoniac into lower and lower species. So that perpetually, does that mean like there's no chance then for those species?
Okay, did you get that? We read those few verses, and those people who are just overwhelmed by lust, anger, greed, etc., etc. Krishna said, I perpetually cast them into demoniac species. So the question is, does that mean there's no chance, right, to get out of it? Well, it definitely means that it's not easy. You don't just sort of breeze out of it, into it, and then think, oh, no, and then you just breeze out of it. The essence is that unless you address your position, your condition, it can actually continue, until you address it. And if you don't address it, it'll just carry on. That's the idea. So as long as it takes, and there's no guarantee that, at a certain point it's just going to be okay.
Maharaj, if I may continue with that, then that kind of seems a little contradictory in the sense that if one is in the mode of ignorance, then he or she cannot be able to even see and address whatever he's doing as wrong.
Well, that's a point. And then the point or the answer is that then Krishna comes himself or sends his devotees, and so a merciful intervention happens. Yeah. Because, I mean, so many people are like that. It's not unusual that they're just so conditioned and overpowered by ignorance and desires and things like that. They, on their own accord, they can't get out of it. So, therefore, the Lord comes himself, or he sends his devotees. And in this way there's an external intervention. And in that way people, they become corrected, or they enter into a process of correction by the mercy of the Lord. Because Krishna's a person, and he feels, and he is not. I was just listening today, Srila Prabhupada was saying that Krishna feels upset when he sees the people in material life. Krishna feels upset, he feels disturbed, and he wants to do something, and he does something. He intervenes, by coming himself and approaching people and offering, giving people the opportunity, or he sends his devotees on his behalf. Is that okay?
Thank you much. I guess I can testify to that fact, that somebody intervened in my life to bring me to Krishna consciousness. Thank you.
Well, me too.
Hare Krishna.
You know, the first devotee I met or saw was Srila Prabhupada himself when I was at university in Auckland. The more sort of problematic a person is, the more mercy they need. So Krishna saw that I was a really problematic person. So only Prabhupada could help me. Okay.
Thank you. Any more questions? Oh, okay, we have one more. This will be our last. So sorry. Okay, Hare Krishna. Sister.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. My question is about pride.
About?
About pride.
Oh, pride, okay.
You were saying that Krishna particularly doesn't like it. And yes, we know this. And there's 2 points. One is I wanted if you could share an example of Krishna giving us tough love as cited in the Caitanya Charitamrita. And then what is it that particularly about pride that displeases him? Because while you explain that it's because we place ourselves above Krishna, but the other vices seem to do the same thing. So if you could just give us a little bit more detail. Thank you.
Okay, but now you're going to give an example, did you say? Or I am?
I requested if you can
Oh,
please
oh,
give
you
us
want? Oh, I thought you were going to give an example of tough love, right? Okay. Well, how about, there's something going on in Ukraine, you may have heard. And one devotee told me about a week or 10 days ago, he's never chanted the way he's chanting now. One devotee from there, in one of these dangerous places, he's never chanted like that, ever. So, even though the situation is, well, we all know what situation's like, but it's prompted him to take Krishna consciousness more seriously. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, that's an example of tough love, because it's really tough. It's just extremely tough. But in tough situations, well, you know, Prabhupada was told not a motto, what would you say? It's sort of call it a motto or something, of the American Marines. When the going gets tough, the tough get going. So, in this case, the going's tough out there, that side. And some of the, at least devotee who I spoke to, he's really got going more than he ever got going in his life in Krishna consciousness. So it's, in its own extraordinary way, it's actually helped him in Krishna consciousness. How's that? Is that okay? And what was the other point, sorry?
What is it about pride that
what's it
Krishna
about pride?
particularly doesn't like?
Right, right. Yeah, well, you know, lust means you just want to enjoy for yourself. Anger, you just get angry because you failed to enjoy, or something like that. Enviousness, somebody's got something. She's got a better mask than me. Yeah, they're kind of self-centered, but pride means that we're really placing ourselves in a higher position and ultimately competing with God. Yeah. So, I mean, that's a perspective on it at least. Okay? Okay. Okay.
Quick sanitization.
It's okay.
So we'd like to end off the program here. I know there was one more question, but maybe we can take that after the program. Thank you again, Maharaj, for your time and your wisdom. To end off today's program, there will be a Harinam leaving the temple at 2:30 if you'd like to join. Harinam is sharing the holy name of the Lord with the general public, so it's a really wonderful activity that we can get engaged in. The college, the Bhaktivedanta College of Culture and Education has now reopened. So Maharaj was reading from Bhagavad Gita. If you'd like to study Bhagavad Gita and other Shastric texts a little deeper, you can get more information from the book table, Temple Communications. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for attending today's program. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta-vrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Oh, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Rama Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha, Radhanata Radha, Radhanata Radhe. Jaya Radha, Radhanata Radha, Radhanata Radhe. Jaya Radha, Radhanata Radha, Radhanata Radhe. Jaya Gora 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 Hari, 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 Jaya Gora Hari, Gora Hari, Gora Hari, Jaya Gora Hari. Jaya Giri Govardhan, Giri Govardhan, Giri Govardhan, Jaya Giri Govardhan. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Nitai Go Haribo, 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 Go Haribo. Nitai Gora Haribo, 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 Go Haribo.
His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada ki, ISKCON's founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki, Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda ki, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki, Prem Segahas Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki, Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gop Gopinath, Shamkund Radhakund Giri Govardhan ki, Shri Vrindavan Dham ki, Shri Mayapur Dham ki, Shri Jagannath Puri Dham ki, Shri Radha Radhanath ki, Shri Giri Govardhan ki, Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki, Shri Hare Krishna Mahamantra ki, Shri Shinatai Gaur Premanande. All glories to their Samo devotees, all glories to their Samo devotees, all glories to their Samo devotees, all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada.